You're listening to the podcast of Iris Josephina. If you're passionate about exploring the menstrual cycle, cyclical living, body wisdom, personal growth, spirituality, and running a business in alignment with your natural cycles, you're in the right place. I'm Iris. I'm an entrepreneur, functional hormone specialist, trainer, and coach, and I'm on a mission to share insights, fun facts, and inspiration I discover along the way as I run my business and walk my own path on Earth. Here, you'll hear my personal stories, guest interviews, and vulnerable shares from clients and students. Most people know me from Instagram, where you can find me under @CycleSeeds, or they have been a coaching client or student in one of my courses. I'm so grateful you're here. Let's dive into today's episode. Hey, Alessandro, welcome to the show.
Hi, Iris. Thanks for having me.
It's so nice to meet you. And the topics that we are going to discuss today are, I think, topics I've never covered anywhere, but I am meeting these topics in the closed walls of my private practice when I work with couples, when I work with women. So first of all, I'm just curious who you are, what you do, and how you landed in this field of work.
All right, perfect. Well, I would probably best describe myself as a men's coach and facilitator. And what I do is specifically help men that are in relationships, most often in marriages. And I help them I got a line saying to become better husbands. But in the end, the ironic thing is I'm really just helping them find their own sense of self and getting them to understand a little bit more dynamics within a relationship that can actually help them step up, so to speak, within that relationship. And we do that by helping them find out who they are inside, and actually allowing that person that they've always wanted to be to come out. So how I've gotten into this work, I kind of went through that journey myself. I had to go through that journey myself. And it was a moment when my wife said to me, I need you to be more of a man or I'm leaving. And that was one of the most heartbreaking and lonely moments I think I've ever had in my life. And it led me to a very up and down 2 years, I would say, where I tried to find out exactly what a man was. I tried to put that into practice for myself. And throughout that process, a whole bunch of different things happened, which allowed me to understand what it was. And then I started a men's group and men started asking me, can I help them with what I went through? And then, everything sort of steamrolls into that. And I decided to leave everything that I had done before and pursue this path.
Thank you for sharing that. And it must have been so hard to go through this yourself. And you mentioned that you felt very lonely in that period, but I also feel because you went through it yourself, you can very much and very deeply relate to the men that come to you for help.
Exactly. Yeah. I actually think it's a driving purpose of mine. It's part of the reason why a lot of what I do also centers around making sure that men have safe spaces to speak. And if they have never had safe spaces to speak, it is one of the most beautiful things to facilitate that and allow that to happen.
Yeah. So I can imagine that the people listening may wonder, you're talking about men learning how to step up. Why is it, according to you, that men aren't stepping up? What is happening there? Why do you think men are not stepping up, or why are women experiencing this as men not stepping up in their relationship?
Well, I think we have a very large amount of. I think there's been swings in trends and characteristics within men. And the first swing was a really bad swing, so to speak. And this is, quite a controlling, toxic, the idea of what we had as a patriarchy, so to speak, and this idea that a man goes and works, woman stays at home, this kind of thing. This was really bad. And I think we've had such a counter movement towards that, such a huge swing of the pendulum to the other side to go, you know what? Let's call that all spine, that they had all spine, but they had no heart. So then we've swung the pendulum all the way to all heart. But a lot of men have translated that into, I'll just do nothing. And then we look at our role models within society, and our role models within society really changed as well. So we went from having these role models as the Marlboro Man, like the all spine, I'm going to go and solve anything, but I'm going to be an asshole, to Homer Simpson and Doug from Doug and Carrie from the King of Queens. And we've got these men that are hopeless, passive, but they have heart and they feel, and it's lovely, but they just, they have no spine. And so I honestly believe the opposite of crazy, which was the all that toughness, that is still crazy. The opposite of crazy is still crazy. And so we have to actually find a balanced way forward. We have to find a way where we can actually have a masculinity that has spine and has heart. It doesn't have to be just one or the other. And I'm finding a lot of the men that I talk to are just, they're seeping in heart, and it's so much heart. And that was what I used to be. It was, people used to say I was a very effeminate man. And I used to take that as a good thing, because I didn't want to be like a man because of all the bad things we've heard about men. And I think that is the biggest issue here, is we've heard such bad things about men, but because we're so scared of toxic masculinity, we've stripped away all masculinity. And that's throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's throwing away a little bit too much.
And how is it, just to weave further onto this, do men experience themselves as not stepping up, or are they in the dark, oh, I'm not stepping up, or are they told they are not stepping up? How do you experience that?
I mean, wives tell them every single day. Wives will not lose an opportunity to tell them. And often the men I talk to, there's one of two things. If they're talking to me and they jump in a coaching call with me, they know it, but they just don't know how. They don't know how to move forward. But there is the other option too, where men also rebel against it and they go, well, this is crap. And then they start going down the route of blaming and say, well, women want us to step up. But the moment we step up, then they don't like our choices, that kind of thing. And so I find that what I'm handling with and what I'm dealing with is both narratives. But most people that come into my sphere, they often come into my sphere with quite a lot of, they see themselves in my story and they go, I really, can you help me with some knowledge here, because I don't know how. And I understand that.
Yeah. And then I can also imagine that you are providing that safe space for them to actually talk and reflect on what is happening. And I'm curious how you create what that means, a safe space for men. And I'm also curious how we as women can contribute to that, because I feel, we as women can say oh, my man is not stepping up, but then as a woman to not also reflect on, okay, how can I provide a safe space for my man to actually do that? What's your thoughts on that?
The interesting thing is, where I learned safety was from my wife. So I think my wife was fed up. I would say that she was really fed up with behaviors and things that I had. But one thing that one day she did for me was it was a fundamental moment for me, where her and I were this was before our wedding. We'd done some pretty terrible things to get into a pretty terrible situation. And she'd packed her bags. She was about to leave. I was crying on the floor. And I remember it so clearly, in this bloody apartment in Hamburg. And I'm sitting there and I'm just crying, thinking that this might be the last time I see our dog. And she knew that there was something more on my chest, but I just didn't want to share it because I didn't feel safe to. And she was about to leave, and we'd been shouting at each other for the whole day. She was about to leave, and she stopped and she went, and she had this change in her, this shift where she went, that's not all. That's not all that's going on. You're going to tell me everything that's going on. And she did this with a strength in her, which was not a force. She's usually, I love to say that she's as subtle as a sledgehammer. So she's usually comes in and she'll get in there. That's my wife, and I fucking love her for it. No, sorry if I'm not allowed to swear. But she came in with this different energy of, I want to hear it, and I will hear it. And I sat with her, and I cannot describe how transformative that was for me, because I just shared everything. It was as if I describe it as if like I imagined like there was this anchor deep inside me, and it came up for the first time, and all the things that I was really upset about came out. And it was like, I think we screwed up with this decision to move to Germany. I think we screwed up with this. I think we lost connection here. I think that we did this and this and this and this, and it all came out. And she gave me that space to share that, and then we connected on that. And she just said, I actually think the same things. And then from that point on, I knew within my heart, I knew that if push came to shove, she could hear me. I'd never believed that of her before that. But because of that one moment, she showed me that there was that capability. When it was really serious, she could actually hear me. And that was a really important thing for me. And I think that's one of the cornerstones, to come all the way back to your question. It's one of the cornerstones for men, is that they feel as if they cannot share. And often the first time, and this is a very weird thing that I've heard it in men's groups afterwards, that sometimes a man even leaves a wife if in his most vulnerable moment, the moment he's actually shared for the first time, she rejects him or pushes him away. And I get the understanding of that, because she's fed up after all of this. But hearing that from men, I hear how men really struggle to become vulnerable and share, because they don't believe that they can. And the moment that they believe they can, then they can go and seek things like men's groups and things like that. And then they can actually be able to share in that sort of space. But the unfortunate thing is if they don't believe they can, and then they get put in this weird position where they're not heard, sometimes it's just, that's when things get really awful. So in the advice to women is like, I don't want to say like you have to always listen to your man, because sometimes it's really difficult, and men can have such a shell around them that it's too much of a burden to say to a woman, this is your job to actually bring that out. And so I never want to actually give that advice to women. I just know in my story that was the thing that really showed me that someone was able to listen to me. And in actual fact, having the truth come out, there was a positive result rather than a negative result. And that's often why men hold that in the first place, is because when the truth came out when they were kids, there were negative results. And so it's better for them to just be quiet. And so I guess if one time in any relationship, if there can be a space where you go, you know what, you can say whatever truth is in your mind. And if he knows that he can speak truth and something positive happens, then he will most likely go and seek to share more truth in other places. And you don't have to hold that as a woman all the time, but maybe once so he can actually see that it's possible.
Yeah, beautiful. I see a lot of like similarities with my own relationship with my partner. And I think for us, we just made an agreement that we create a space for each other where we can share without judgment, and we remind each other. He actually reminds me of it, like, hey, just want to make sure that everything can be shared here. I love you. I'm not leaving. And you can just be here and share. And I think we've developed that together, and we're still like in the process of developing that and building that into our relationship. And it's one of the most beautiful things. And I think that's the most beautiful way to grow as a couple as well, because when both parties can be truthful and vulnerable, and you don't have the feeling that you have to like hide parts of yourself or your partner, this is where true growth happens and where the deepening of the connection happens. So I'm just so grateful that you do this work with men, because I feel many men don't get this opportunity in their relationship, and sometimes they need to hear it from other men, like, oh, okay, this is possible.
Exactly. I mean, that's the biggest thing with men, is that they feel so alone, and it's a shift for them. I see it in both my work, and I see it in the men's work and things like this, is the moment men realize that other men go through the same thing, and that they share, and it won't be at the end of the world, it shifts something in them. And that might be I'm not going to be loved or all of that sort of stuff, but it's a huge block. It's a huge block, and it's often the first block that men need to get through in order to grow.
Yeah, and it sounds like a big part of it is also just community. Like we're still communal beings, but we don't really live our lives that way.
100%.
Yeah. So in your work, you talk about what you call the boy to man model. Can you share about what in your perception makes a boy versus what makes a healthy integrated man?
So this was one of the things which I was very grateful for in my own journey when I was like, become more of a man or I'm leaving. I was like, where the hell do I find out what a man is? And ironically enough, I was running a social media company, and one of my clients was the Rites of Passage Institute. And the founder of that, Dr. Anna Rubinstein, wrote something called the Boy to Man Model. And so I was actually editing these videos every single day. And then all of a sudden I'm looking at this and it's like, this is what a boy is and this is what a man is. And I'm looking at this model and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing a lot of these boy things rather than these man things. So I'll read them out. He basically there's 5 categories, and I've got it on the side here so I don't stuff it up. So a boy just wants power and to be the center of attention. So it's all look at me, look at me, look at me. A boy avoids responsibility. So he's always going to avoid responsibility. It was somebody else's fault. I mean, even a boy, you can even imagine a boy who's like playing cricket or baseball or something in the backyard, and then he hits a ball into a window. He's going to blame like even the glass. He's going to blame the dog for jumping in front. He's going to blame anything other than, actually I hit the ball into the window, A boy is ruled by his emotions. So it's not bad to have emotions, but when a boy is completely ruled by them, throws tantrums, like sulks, or just cannot control, cannot sit with, cannot do anything with emotions, just like if emotions comes, he's on the roller coaster of it. A boy can never be wrong. And a boy always wants a mother. So all of these are fine in a 6 to 10-year-old. But if we imagine, the men in our society that start wanting attention and power, they avoid responsibility, they're ruled by their emotions, can never be wrong, and they just want a mother, that's kind of a problem. It's kind of a problem. So if we can talk about the healthy man alternatives and the integrated man alternatives and this behavior, and I want to make it really clear, and one thing that I'm learning is these are archetypes. These are not realities. Like when we talk about masculine, feminine, when we talk about boy versus man or healthy man or whatever the words we're going to use, all of these are archetypes. And we use archetypes because they're akin to stories, and we know that we work well with stories. And so a healthy man archetype is something we walk towards rather than something that we have to be, and if we're not, we're all of a sudden a boy. It's not like you didn't display this behavior, so now you're a boy. It's more of a path or a journey to get to. So the archetype of a healthy man is being part of the universe and using power to serve the community. So it's not about like forgiving power and going and being a monk or wanting the power for themselves. It's seeking power, but for the community. Then instead of avoiding responsibility, it's taking full responsibility for actions. Instead of being ruled by emotions, it's stand with emotions. To be able to feel emotions and actually stand with them. I have this thing where I actually take it to a point where I feel like we as men need to learn how to be vulnerable and control our emotions so that we can actually get to the point where we're being truthful, but we're also able to not be carried with the emotion, to see it for what it is and feel it when we need to feel it. Then instead of can never be wrong, admits when wrong. And then finally, just wants a mother, seeks a healthy relationship with the feminine. So that's the model from Dr. Anna.
I love that. And I think what came up for me when you mentioned rites of passage, my background is in anthropology, and what I've learned throughout my entire anthropology journey is that in our society, we don't really have that demarcation, that journey from like child to adult. And in my view, because so many of us missed that like mark in our lives, we also don't know how to like integrate our inner child and keep that within ourselves as an adult. Is that something that you do in your work?
Exactly that. So then working with the Rites of Passage Institute, I noticed that, so they do this for, like, that whole company is there to bring 17-year-olds and their fathers into the Australian bush, and they go through a 5-day rite of passage to help them from going from boy to man behavior. Now, I love that. And I know that when I have kids one day, that's something I want to do. But what I noticed was, you know, the way that Dr. Anna would always talk about how he's worried that we're living in a society run by boys. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of men that slipped through the cracks and are boys because we've never had rites of passage. And so for me, I actually center my work around that to go, I want to help the men that got left behind, that didn't have a rite of passage, which is essentially almost every single man on this planet. But that's why I run a Better Husband retreat, which is essentially a masculine rite of passage. And that is one way that I do it. But all of these tactics and things like that within the rite of passage, they seep into my coaching work as well, because these elements within a rite of passage are actually real elements. They're really simple. It's story, so sharing stories and wisdom from elder to lower. It's having some kind of challenge. It is honoring for your unique gifts and talents. And finally, it is a vision for the future. And so each one of those can really be brought in. Yes, they're the best when you're in a community, and men, especially when you have a challenge with like 12 men and you actually build that, incredible. But if you do not have that, we do need to create these for ourselves. We have to create these for ourselves. And that's another part of what I do within the coaching.
Beautiful. Oh my God, I want to send all the men I know to your work. Another part of your work is what you call the life ship concept, where you talk about building a shared life together. Can you share a little bit more about that? Because it's something that I really value, and I'm really at the point in my relationship where we are, you know, in this like pre-marriage state where we're like, okay, we're choosing each other. We're really going to move forward together and really talking about, okay, what does this shared life look like? What do we want from it? What do you want? What do I want? What are our shared goals? So I'm curious what your take on this is and how you bring that to your community.
For sure. So I do believe the moment that, let's imagine we're talking about the masculine archetype of a man moving out into the world, and he's just left his parents and now he's going to go and tackle the world. The moment we leave our parents and what would have been a rite of passage, but nowadays is just a moment out, I imagine this moment as a ship. Like we're out on an adventure on a boat, and you're choosing a direction. Some people like a big fast ship, some people like it small, whatever. But what's interesting is whenever we join into a relationship with somebody, it's not two separate ships. It is one ship. You join the ship together. And a lot of people like live their lives as if they have two very separate ships within their life. And there's only one. There is only one. And I also find this metaphor is quite good to explain mental load to men. So in actual fact, this was the reason why I came up with this metaphor, was I tried to find a way to explain mental load to men. So this is what I tell men. Imagine you have this ship, and you and your wife, it's both your responsibility to work out where you're going on the ship, to have an adventure in the ship. But what men often are doing is they're downstairs and they're rowing. They're rowing all day. So rowing is really good for like forward momentum energy of work, right? That's work. I'm making sure this ship is moving. And so men, in a lot of situations, because there's a lot of women who are not stay-at-home mothers or who are often working as well and rowing as well. Anyway, but I'm just talking about the archetypal, what we see in our society a lot the most. So men often, they're downstairs, they're rowing, and then they're so tired after rowing, they come up to the top of the deck and they just lie there and they go, oh, I'm done. And they look around and their wife is standing there with the kid in one arm. She's got the steering wheel. She's trying to hammer the side of the railings because they're falling apart. There's a thunderstorm coming. The boat's now moving, and it might even be going in the wrong direction. They've not even had a conversation about it. And she's like saying, can you help me with the railings because the kid's about to fall off? And he's just like, I'm done. I rowed the boat, didn't I? And she's just like, there's so much else. There's so much else that you have to do here. It's not just about rowing. Plus, I was rowing earlier too. That's what she might say. But anyway, so I sort of look at it and go, okay, well, man, if we want to discuss what this is within your life ship, you have to be happy within the responsibilities. So it's not that all men must do all tasks and all women must do all tasks. It is when you have a ship together, you get to come up to the top of the deck and you actually have a shared, like you both are responsible for this ship. And it's a wonderful thing to then look at it and go, in actual fact, in every relationship, there is yourself, there is your partner, and there is your life ship. There is the relationship. And so you're not responsible for how the other person feels or what the other person does. You're responsible for your 50% of the life ship. And so you both have to be really happy with how you're running it. You both have to be happy within your roles. And if you're not, if just one person is not, that merits a meeting or a conversation to work on the roles to make them better. Because that's the thing, is this life ship is both of your responsibility and your, like, it's almost a gift to you both to work on it and to find out where you want to go. And too many men just row, come back, and they're tired. And they don't even know what direction they want to go in. They don't even know if their wife is happy. And they get so annoyed that they have to do anything else in the ship. And the moment men realize that they have agency within this life and they actually can, I get to also choose part of where the ship is going. I also get to make the ship into a beautiful place for me to live too. And the moment they realize that, they go, actually, that's pretty cool. It's not her just running the show. I gave that up to her because I was just scared of her reactions. So, and that's the analogy with the life ship. And yeah. And, there's a lot more that you can sort of talk about. Because as soon as you start having traumas and inner child wounds and things like that, that becomes like the baggage that sits at the back of the boat. But for what we have right now, I think this is a good start of the analogy.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I feel this is something that so many people struggle with, but maybe haven't put into that perspective. I feel that in my relationship and what I see around me, a lot of people had to come to that realization, we're in this together and we're having this beautiful sacred relationship that we both have to fuel, and we have to be conscious about how we're fueling it. Otherwise the whole thing goes haywire. So thank you for this analogy, because I think it makes things very tangible for people. And from everything that we talked about, is there something that we missed, or is there something that you really want people to get from our conversation or from the work that you do?
Well, I think when I'm talking to men and women, but specifically talking to men, what they don't understand, I think they're the first ones to jump into you versus me thinking. The first ones to jump into this. And I think it links a little bit into the boy to man model and to the rites of passage sort of stuff. But there's essentially, if any man out there is listening, or any wife of a man that's listening, understand that this you versus me thinking is coming because of some kind of reason why the boy or the man feels like he's been hard done by. And I really want to work in this world to make sure that men understand that their wife is their actual biggest ally within this. And yes, she calls you out, but that calling out is something exceedingly beautiful. There's nothing like a wife when it comes to intuition on problems. Intuition on problems. Now, I have this analogy which I use in my coaching, which I think any man can use. And I literally say to them, I go, okay, so let's imagine that you have a rug in the center of the floor. And this rug is, a magic rug, and it can grow to the size of the things that you put underneath it. I say, okay, is there anything in your health that your wife has been telling you about, but you haven't actually looked at, right? And if she's told you about it once, maybe it's the size of dust. If she's told you about it like 2 to 3 times, maybe it's the size of a pair of shoes. But if she's told you about it like almost every month for 20 years, we're talking about a couch or a fridge that goes underneath this rug, okay? So I get them to imagine this, and I say, okay, now we sweep that under the rug and we let the rug grow to cover that. And then we go to each other area, life admin, is there like applying for a passport that you haven't done, or dealing with your taxes, or all of these kind of things. Go sweep it under the rug. Go sweep it under the rug. What about wealth and money? Oh gosh, sometimes, there's like skyscrapers that start going underneath this massive rug. And eventually, and also date nights and things like that, relationship and connection. And then I say to them, all right, so that's all under the rug. Tell me, if your wife were to enter this room, can she get to the other side? Can she get to the other side? And they're like, no. Nah. I was like, well, interestingly enough, her more than anyone, she knows when you haven't done things. And those things that you haven't done are often actually the things you really need done. Like I would talk to one guy and he would say, yeah, I actually started feeling a tremor, and she told me that I needed to go see a doctor. And, we've got a young child, and this young child, and I'm a little bit older. And I'm like, do you realize why she's saying that? Because it makes her feel unsafe. Mm-hmm. That you have a young child together, you have a tremor, you don't know what it is, and you say it's just fine and I don't need to go to the doctor. That's not. Wow. That's something that's going to make her feel unsafe. And then another man, he's like, well, yeah, I haven't dealt with taxes or the finances on sort of things. And again, you see that makes her feel unsafe. And so often I'll say, you got to pull these things out from under the rug, because what's going to happen is your wife's going to come in and she's going to be angry at you. She might mislabel it. But of course she mislabels it because you've got a fucking rug above it. Like you're covering it by just sweeping these things under the rug. And these things are the things that hurt the relationship. And these are the things that are actually you're avoiding. And those are the things, quite often or not, if you're ever going to get to a stage of divorce, like those are the things that you've got to sweep out first. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that are actually hurting you and hurting the relationship. And then the men get into you versus me of, if only my wife just didn't. No, she's a alert signal. She'll tell you when something's wrong because she's better at that than us. Like that's full stop. Oh, and one thing on that, women are quite literally, there's a Doc Amen in the States, and he did a study on, I think it was like 30,000 brains. And there's a 14% better, women are 14% better at forethinking.
Oh, yeah.
And forethought.
Oh, yeah.
And so if we just, and I'm like, I say to the men, it's like, well, they can see problems further than we can.
Mm-hmm. I love it so much that you're saying this, because I literally have had this conversation with my partner so many times. I literally use that word. He's going to laugh and he's going to listen to this.
So women literally have better forethought. And so I honestly believe it's a superpower for men to hear their woman's forethought and not necessarily take it at the words, take it at the emotion. If your wife starts going, something's wrong, you haven't done this, oh, like there's that kind of energy. Sit with her. Imagine that all that's happened is the check signal lamp has gone on, or if you want the life ship analogy, maybe the alert signal on the boat has gone on, and it is your job to decipher the issue. You can listen to it, and she might say, it's because you haven't done the bins. And you listen to it, and you go, it's not that. What else? It's because tax is coming up next month and we haven't paid it. Oh yeah, that's actually pretty bad, because if we don't pay that, then we don't have enough money coming in for 2 months after that. Oh, okay, I actually think it's that. superpower. The man gets to then, so I honestly think like that's the dynamic that works because of this forethought thing. And because and then this is where also hormones come in, because men have the better ability to regulate each day, and women, this changes. We're going through cycles. And so because men have the better ability to regulate through the days, I believe then the archetypes work here of masculine and feminine, where you literally go, okay, she's the one who finds the signals that things are wrong, and he's the one who deciphers what it is. And then they can either both work on it, or he can work on it, or whatever it is. That's where the team roles come in, and they get it sorted.
I love that.
But that's team thinking.
Thank you for bringing that. And I think also what is important for men to understand in this, even if it comes out like in a shitty way in our luteal phase, it comes from a place of care. We care about you. And we care about you so much that we want every single part of your life to be good.
Mm-hmm. Half of the work that I do is helping men see through her tone.
Oh, wow. I love that.
See them through her tone. Like, it's because most of them have this idea that it's just too unnecessary emotions. The emotions are just too unnecessary. And I'm like, yeah, if you want her to be a man, then it is too unnecessary, but she's not a man. And it's not that's not the way through. And yeah, that's one of the biggest things when women's emotions are not something that men have been taught to handle at the moment.
No, but they can learn.
They can learn it. It is possible. And there's some really cute things that you could do to try. And if any man's listening here today, try this. This is something. I used to have an aversion to anger. So my family dynamics when I grew up was that my parents never fought. The only time they ever fought in their life, I remember it, they shouted at each other once, and my brother and I were sitting on the stairs and sitting there like wondering what on earth was going on. I must have been like 10. The next day they called us in and they said, we're going to get a divorce. So for me, like I equate anger to divorce. That's how I grew up,
Wow.
And my wife came from a opposite family. They were Polish, and they threw pots and pans at each other, and so she came from like a more trauma sort of space where if she felt like she wasn't being heard, she needed to get angrier. And so when we started having issues in our relationship, you can probably already see the dynamic that starts to happen here. It's like I shut down because I'm like, this is not like anger is wrong here. And I would almost have described her anger to me as repulsive.
Wow.
Because she gets so angry, it's like it's repulsive. Like I don't find that attractive. I find that scary. And I don't like it. And the moment I had to realize that we were a team, I had to come through a way to actually make her anger be good in a way. And so it's going to sound terrible, but I imagine my wife as like a Sesame Street character when she's angry, like an angry fuzzball, like this really, like if you draw a cartoon little fuzzball that's really angry, she's like that. And I see that and I'm like, when she's angry, that's her. And what it did was it made me soften to her because whenever she got angry, I just saw the angry fuzzball and I was like, oh, that's Julia. That's my wife, It was cute. And it made me smile. I don't need to imagine her as a softball anymore. I understand it. But we need to understand that, our wife's not going to hurt us. And that's another thing that men really struggle with is they believe that there's going to be some kind of repercussion or something and they're so scared of their wives. And then they start going to the me versus you thinking. And if they just realize that the biggest thing that she wants, I mean, if any woman has ever sent one of my videos to their man, the biggest thing that she wants is connection and love and understanding. Nothing else. And if those are the biggest wants, you can deal with her tone. You can deal with her tone. And that tone, we have to say, and if you've got women listeners, I can imagine this is what they're probably saying right now. That tone has come from the fact that she has been trying to say this for years and she's actually quite pissed off. So it's not that that tone is not warranted, but that's another thing that men struggle with. So we got to get through that.
Yeah, and usually this tone is not something that comes like every day, hopefully. I hope for other people. For us, it's like in my luteal phase right before my period, like it's going to come out in all the ways. Yeah.
But that's the other thing we're talking about, that tone though, and you've just hit on something really brilliant, is this is also where men, when they start understanding like and trusting their woman and they also start dealing with the things that are under their rug, I talk about how that is them knowing what is their proverbial shit pile versus somebody else's. And at this point, you can start to realize, okay, is this my shit or their shit? And if it's your shit, like my biggest advice is, if it's yours, own it and deal with it. If it's theirs, pause. You do not need to take it personally.
Yeah.
Because I remember in my relationship, the moment I paused, and there was one day that Julia was so angry, and she got so angry, and she just had this like volcano explosion. And I used to be able to, I used to in the relationship try and fix her, try and slow it down, try and pause it. And then that volcano was not directed at the ants in the kitchen. It was now directed at me because I'm trying to slow it down. And oh gosh, that was the worst. But if men instead realize, okay, is this my shit or her shit? It's my shit. No, it's not my shit. It's her shit. Stop and don't take it on. Don't take it on. Allow it to go through it. And then I did that. And for the first time ever, when this was a couple of years ago, whatever it was, and the next day Julia did something she had never done before, which was, wow, that was really out of line. I'm sorry. Because then you allow somebody to self-regulate and deal with their own shit.
Yeah.
The moment you find that repulsive, the moment you like get in the way of them dealing with their own thing, then it becomes about you and how your dynamics. And so that's also not loving your partner for who they are, and loving your partner for who they are is literally just the core of it. You're on a team, and if one of your teammates is going crazy, allow them to do that. And they'll work out their own thing while you just not take it personally.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, the more you get on the right team and you understand that everything's okay. They're just dealing with their own traumas.
Yeah.
Too.
And I feel, this also goes both ways. Like if my partner is having his things and he needs to step out, which I feel is something that is very hard for women because we want to like regulate the emotions immediately. And it's not something that men do like acutely. Sometimes they need to like step out, take a break, pause, process. I feel women really process on the spot and always have something to say. This is something in our dynamic that I'm like really learning about, that sometimes a man needs to like step out and I need to provide him or allow him his space and then for him to come back
We're
to me.
exactly the opposite, my wife and I. So I'm the one who always wants to, and she needs to step out. But in a relationship, that often happens. There's one and one.
Yeah.
But again, when you have a life ship, have a conversation about how are we going to handle conflicts? Conflicts are going to be a natural thing on this boat because someone's going to have one responsibility, there's going to be another thing, or there's going to be this and this. What are our fight dynamics? All right. So be, as a man, and this is the thing, like if you want to have a better relationship, be proactive rather than reactive. There's no point trying to fix a marriage when you're at the at the settlement for the divorce. Fix it beforehand. Fix it with conflict. Understand, okay, so when we have conflict, the first thing I get like men that I work with to do is I tell them, if you need time to regulate your emotions, go and tell them that an Australian men's coach that I'm seeing has told me that I can say to you within my fights, if you're okay with this, that if I need 5 minutes, I'm going to go to the other room regulate my emotions so I don't speak from like being pulled by my emotions and I can actually speak clearly. And then I will come back and have that conversation. Mm-hmm. Is that something that is good for our relationship? And are you happy with that as I am happy with that? And then you can have that conversation, right? And then that conversation helps you move forward and have a better relationship because you've had these proactive conversations about your fight styles.
Yeah, I love that. Your fight styles.
Exactly.
It's important to talk
this with your relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very important. And I feel that when we are like illiterate in that way, like that's where all the problems start arising because you haven't spoken about how you're going to like move this relationship forward. Like I feel a lot of people don't even talk about that. They just live the relationship. And
exactly. And look, they get so, the thing is we don't want to talk about it because it's messy but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be, but because we're brushing over these things and then you're just taking things at face value. So for example, when we've all probably experienced fights where they've just gone a little bit too far. And when they go too far, things start coming out. You're a bitch. You're crazy. You're an narcissist. You're gaslighting me. You're an asshole. I don't respect you. These things start coming out at the point, like once you've already gone too far. Once you're ready at that point. And those are the things that seem to stick with us. But we can avoid them if we're proactive about it and say, hey, where's a boundary line? Is this boundary, like what's our boundary line? And on that point, like we just enforce where one of us is going to leave, and it's okay if one of us does. And you might notice it's a dangerous place because let's say the man is enforcing this and saying, look, there's going to be a timeout moment here, because you also don't want a man who just shuts down emotionally and then uses that as an escape. But this is where, you're on a team. Everyone has to work this out themselves. But essentially, it is a dangerous point because you can say, okay, I'm going to go regulate my emotions. And while you're leaving, the wife goes, well, you've ruined my day. And then the man hears that and then turns around and starts again and can't stop. But we have to just like always remember you're on a team. And if somebody's not presenting the best that they can, don't bring the whole boat down just because one person's not at their best. Like you can step up there, and then at other times she will step up when you're not at your best. And that's the point of it. It's teamwork, and it's shortening the gap. The whole thing is shortening the gap between fight and reconciliation. Because I don't believe that fights never happen, but I do believe we can almost get reconciliation to a point where it's under a minute. Because there's always going to be something that hits. But how short can you make the reconciliation? How short can you make the I'm letting that go because it doesn't serve us?
I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I hope that the people who are listening take something from this. Like go try this out in your relationship if you have one. Try this at home.
Go try this at home.
And where can people find you if they are listening to you and they're like, oh, I want to like send my partner to this. I want to try this. I want to go on a retreat. I want to get coaching. What's the best place where people can find you and your work?
www.alessandrofrossali.com. That's my website, but also on Instagram as well. Alessandro_Frossali. I'm there as well. But essentially anywhere online where you find me, I'm there.
Perfect. I will paste all of this in the show notes so everyone can find it. Thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, for listening to this as your life's purpose, because I feel a lot of people are very supported by your work. And everyone who is listening, go check out his Instagram. He shares a lot of like cool little videos that you can learn a lot from. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Okay, this wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Want to know more about me? The best way to reach me is via @CycleSeeds on Instagram. And if you heard something today and you think, oh my God, wow, I learned something new, feel free to share the podcast on your social media and tag me, or leave a review or rating. In this way, you help me reach more people like you. Thank you so much.